Kate Morrison pulled her thick jacket tighter around her body as the cold wind hit her face. She was standing on a field of white ice that stretched as far as she could see. The sun was low in the sky and everything looked blue and gray. Her team had been working in Greenland for 3 weeks now. They came here to study old ice and learn about the weather from long ago. Jake Collins was kneeling next to a big machine that looked into the ground with special waves. He had been quiet for the last hour, which was not normal for him. Jake always talked about rocks and dirt and old things buried in the earth. Kate walked over to see what was making him so quiet. The machine showed something very strange on its screen. There was a big shape deep under the ice. It was not rock or dirt or anything that should be there. The shape was long and smooth like a giant tube. The machine said it was made of metal, but the metal was different from anything Jake had seen before. Kate looked at the numbers on the screen. The thing was buried 3 miles down in ice that was over 50,000 years old. That meant whatever was down there had been frozen for a very long time. Much longer than humans had been building things from metal. The team gathered around the machine to look at the strange readings. There was Ben, who knew about ice and how old it was. There was Amy, who studied tiny living things that might be frozen in the ice. There was also Steve, who was good with computers and machines. Ben shook his head when he saw the size of the thing. It was 800 feet long. That was bigger than most buildings. Amy was excited because she thought there might be old life forms near it. Steve was worried because their equipment was showing power readings from the object. Something that old should not have any power left. Kate made the decision to call their boss back home. This was too big and too strange for just her team to handle. She used the satellite phone to call Dr. Peterson at the university. She tried to explain what they found, but it sounded crazy even to her. Dr. Peterson told them to take more readings and pictures, but not to try to dig down to the object. He said he would send more people and better equipment. Kate knew that meant this discovery was about to become much bigger than just her small research team. For the next 4 days, they used every machine they had to study the object from above. The metal was not like anything on Earth. It had patterns and lines that looked planned and made on purpose. The shape was too perfect to be natural. Whatever it was had been built by someone or something. The power readings were getting stronger. Steve noticed that the object seemed to be warming up. The ice around it was starting to melt just a little bit. Kate wondered if their machines were somehow waking up whatever was down there. When the new team arrived, they brought machines that could melt through ice very quickly. Dr. Peterson came with them along with people from the government. Kate could tell this was now much more important than studying old weather. The melting took 2 weeks. They had to be very careful not to damage whatever was buried in the ice. As they got closer to the object, the power readings became much stronger. The metal was definitely not from Earth. When they finally reached the surface of the object, Kate felt her heart beating fast. The metal was smooth and dark gray. There were lines and patterns cut into it that looked like writing, but not like any writing she had ever seen. The patterns seemed to glow with a very soft blue light. They found what looked like a door. It was a round opening with more of the strange writing around it. Steve connected his computers to the object to see if he could learn more about the power source. As soon as he made the connection, the door began to open. Cold air rushed out of the opening. It was much colder than the ice around them. Kate pointed her flashlight into the darkness and saw a long hallway. The walls were made of the same smooth metal, and they glowed softly with blue light. Jake was the first to step inside. His voice echoed as he called back to the others. The hallway was tall enough for humans to walk in, but it felt different somehow. Like it was made for beings that were similar to humans, but not exactly the same. As they walked deeper into the object, they found more hallways and rooms. Everything was perfectly preserved. There was no ice inside, even though the whole thing had been frozen for thousands of years. The blue lights in the walls were still working, which should have been impossible. Amy found what looked like control panels with buttons and screens. When she touched one of the screens, it lit up with symbols and pictures. Steve tried to connect his computer to learn what the symbols meant, but the technology was too different from anything humans had made. Kate stood in the main hallway and looked around. She knew they had found something that would change everything. This was not made by humans. Someone else had built this ship, and it had crashed or landed on Earth a very long time ago. The question was who had built it and why was it here. The team spent the rest of the day exploring and taking pictures. They found rooms that looked like they were for sleeping and eating. They found what might have been a place to control the ship. Everything was alien, but somehow familiar at the same time. As the day ended, Kate knew their quiet research trip had become something much bigger. Soon the whole world would know about this discovery. She just hoped they were ready for what they might find inside the strange frozen ship. 3 days after Kate Morrison made her call to the university, everything changed at the ice site. Big helicopters came carrying soldiers and scientists. More equipment arrived every few hours. The quiet research camp became a busy base with tents and machines everywhere. Colonel Ryan Murphy was in charge of the soldiers. He was a tall man with gray hair who spoke in a calm voice, but his eyes looked very serious. Kate could tell he had seen many difficult things in his life. With him came Dr. Lisa Grant, who studied life forms that might exist on other planets. She was younger than Kate, but very smart and asked many good questions. The government people told Kate and her team that everything about the ship had to stay secret. No one could talk about it or write about it until they understood what they had found. Kate understood why this was important, but it felt strange to keep such a big discovery quiet. Dr. Grant was very excited when she first went inside the ship. She brought special equipment to test the air and look for any signs of life. The air inside was clean and safe to breathe, which surprised everyone. After 50,000 years, the ship still had working life support systems. Colonel Murphy brought soldiers who were trained to explore dangerous places. They went through every room in the ship to make sure it was safe. They found no weapons or anything that seemed dangerous. The ship appeared to be built for research and travel, not for fighting. Jake Collins worked with the new team to map out the whole ship. It had 5 levels and many different rooms. There were places that looked like laboratories and others that might have been for storage. The most interesting place was at the front of the ship, where they found what was clearly the control room. The control room was amazing to see. It had a big chair in the center, surrounded by curved walls covered with screens and buttons. The chair was too big for humans and shaped differently. Whoever had built this ship was similar to humans but taller with longer arms. Steve connected more of his computers to the ship systems. The alien technology was far ahead of anything humans had built, but it used some of the same basic ideas. The computers used electricity and stored information in ways that Steve could begin to understand. Dr. Grant made an important discovery in one of the laboratories. She found containers that held samples of things from many different planets. There were rocks and crystals and what looked like preserved pieces of plants and animals. The labels on the containers were in the alien writing, but some had pictures that helped explain what was inside. Amy found something that excited her very much. In one room, there were tanks that had once held living things. The tanks were empty now, but the equipment around them showed that the aliens had been studying life forms from different worlds. This was definitely a research ship. Ben studied the ice around the ship and determined exactly when it had crashed. The ice patterns showed that the ship had come down during a very cold time when much of the Earth was covered in ice. The crash had happened about 50,000 years ago, when early humans were just learning to make tools. Colonel Murphy was most interested in the ship engines. His people found the power source in the bottom level of the ship. It was unlike anything humans had ever built. The power came from something that looked like a crystal but generated energy in a way no one understood. Even after all this time, it was still working. Dr. Grant brought in Alex Turner, who was an expert at understanding unknown languages. Alex was a thin man with thick glasses who got very excited when he saw the alien writing. He said the symbols were more complex than any human language but followed patterns that made sense. Alex spent days taking pictures of all the writing in the ship. He used computers to look for patterns and repeated symbols. Slowly he began to understand that the writing included numbers and maps. The aliens used mathematics the same way humans did, which gave him a way to start translating their language. The breakthrough came when Alex found star charts on the control room screens. The aliens had mapped many star systems, including the one that contained Earth. When he compared their star maps to human maps, everything began to make sense. The aliens knew exactly where they were when they came to Earth. Steve made an important discovery when he learned how to turn on the main computer system. The screens came alive with information and images. Most of it was still impossible to understand, but some parts showed pictures of planets and spaceships and different kinds of living beings. Kate realized they were looking at records from a civilization that had traveled between the stars for a very long time. The ship contained information about many worlds and many different forms of life. Earth was just one of many planets the aliens had visited. Dr. Grant found evidence that the aliens had been to Earth before this ship crashed. There were detailed studies of Earth plants and animals, including some that were now extinct. The aliens had been watching Earth and studying how life developed here. The most shocking discovery came when Alex found files that contained images of early humans. The aliens had pictures of human hunters and gatherers from 50,000 years ago. They had been studying humans and learning about how human society was developing. Colonel Murphy called his superiors to report what they had learned. This was not just a crashed alien ship. It was evidence that Earth had been visited by intelligent beings who had been watching human development for a very long time. The implications were enormous. Kate stood in the control room and looked at the alien star charts showing Earth's location. She realized that humans were not alone in the universe and never had been. Someone had been out there watching and studying them since the very beginning of human civilization. The team now faced a much bigger question than just understanding alien technology. They needed to figure out why the aliens had come to Earth and what they had planned to do here. The answers to those questions would change how humans saw themselves and their place in the universe. Alex Turner had been working day and night to understand the alien language. His eyes were red from staring at computer screens, but he was making real progress. The breakthrough came when he realized that the aliens wrote about time the same way humans did. Once he understood their calendar system, everything else started to fall into place. Dr. Lisa Grant was amazed when Alex showed her the first translated documents. The aliens called themselves the Corvani, and they had been exploring space for over 1 million years. They were much older than human civilization, but they were not conquerors or invaders. They were scientists and explorers just like the human team studying their ship. Kate Morrison read the translated files with growing excitement. The Corvani had found Earth during one of their long exploration missions. They had been mapping this part of the galaxy when they detected signs of intelligent life developing on a small blue planet. What they found here had fascinated them. The ship logs told an incredible story. When the Corvani first arrived at Earth 50,000 years ago, they found early humans living in small groups. The humans were using stone tools and learning to control fire. Most species at that stage of development stayed the same for millions of years, but humans were different. Jake Collins listened as Alex read from the Corvani observations about early humans. The aliens had been amazed by how quickly humans learned new things. They watched human groups develop better tools and new ways of hunting. They saw humans create art and music and complex social structures. No other species the Corvani had found developed so fast. The Corvani had studied hundreds of different intelligent species across the galaxy. Most of them followed predictable patterns of development. They would learn to use tools, then stay at that level for very long periods of time. Some species never advanced beyond using simple tools. Even after millions of years, Dr. Grant found reports about other species the Corvani had discovered. There were beings that lived in the oceans of distant worlds and others that lived in the clouds of gas giant planets. Some were very intelligent, but none showed the rapid development and creativity that humans displayed. The Corvani scientists had debated among themselves about what made humans special. Some thought it was human curiosity and the desire to explore new places. Others believed it was the way humans worked together in groups while still thinking independently. Many Corvani were impressed by human creativity and the ability to imagine things that did not yet exist. Colonel Ryan Murphy was interested in the Corvani descriptions of human behavior during conflicts. The aliens had observed human tribes fighting each other but also working together when facing common dangers. They noted that humans could be both competitive and cooperative, which was unusual among intelligent species. Amy discovered that the Corvani had collected samples of early human tools and artwork. They had pieces of carved bone and stone tools that showed human creativity from 50,000 years ago. The aliens had been so interested in human development that they had risked coming close to Earth to gather these samples. Ben found geological surveys the Corvani had done of Earth. They had studied the planet's climate and predicted that the ice age would end and the planet would become warmer. They calculated that this would give humans more places to live and more opportunities to develop their civilization. The most important discovery came when Alex translated the ship's mission logs. The Corvani had not come to Earth just to study humans from a distance. They had been planning something much more significant. The crashed ship had been on its way to establish a permanent observation post on Earth. Steve learned from the computer files that the Corvani had wanted to set up a hidden base where they could watch human development more closely. They were so interested in humans that they had decided to conduct a long-term study spanning thousands of years. They wanted to see how far human civilization could advance. Kate realized the enormous implications of this discovery. The Corvani had believed that humans were special enough to deserve decades of careful study. An advanced alien civilization had thought humans were worth watching and learning from. This changed everything about how humans should think about themselves. Dr. Grant found personal logs written by individual Corvani crew members. They wrote about their excitement at discovering such a promising species. Some Corvani had wanted to make contact with humans immediately, while others thought it was better to wait until humans developed space travel on their own. The logs revealed that the Corvani had been divided about how to handle the discovery of humanity. Some wanted to help humans develop faster by sharing technology and knowledge. Others argued that humans should be allowed to develop naturally without outside interference. The debate had continued for years among Corvani scientists and philosophers. Alex found records of the final decision made by the Corvani leadership. They had decided to establish the observation post and watch human development for several thousand years. If humans continued to show progress and remained peaceful, they would eventually be contacted and invited to join the galactic community of intelligent species. The tragedy was revealed in the final log entries. The ship had encountered a severe storm while trying to land in a remote area of Earth. The storm had damaged their engines and forced them to crash land on the ice. The crew had survived the crash, but their communication equipment was destroyed. Jake discovered that the Corvani crew had lived for several months after the crash. They had tried to repair their ship, but the damage was too severe. The extreme cold of the Ice Age had eventually overwhelmed their life support systems. The 12 crew members had died one by one as their power sources failed. The last entries in the ship's log were written by the final surviving crew member. He expressed sadness that they would not be able to complete their mission, but confidence that humans would eventually develop enough to find the ship. He had used the remaining power to preserve all their data and scientific records. Colonel Murphy read the final message with growing amazement. The dying Corvani had left detailed instructions for building a communication device that could contact their home world. They had also included star charts showing the locations of other friendly alien civilizations. The ship was not just a monument to a failed mission, but a gift for humanity's future. Kate stood in the control room surrounded by evidence of alien faith in humanity. An advanced civilization had believed in human potential 50,000 years ago. They had been so convinced that humans would eventually reach the stars that they had left detailed guides for making contact with other intelligent species. The Team now understood that they were not just studying an alien crash site. They were the inheritors of a legacy left by beings who had seen something special in humanity before human civilization had even begun. The question was whether modern humans were ready to live up to that ancient confidence. The discovery that changed everything happened in the lower levels of the Corvani ship. Kate Morrison and her team had been exploring every room and corridor for weeks, but they had saved the cargo areas for last. When they finally opened the sealed doors to the main storage bay, they found something that took their breath away. The cargo bay was enormous and filled with thousands of crystalline containers. Each container was about the size of a human hand and glowed with soft internal light. Steve connected his equipment to one of the containers and discovered that they were data storage devices more advanced than anything humans had ever imagined. Dr. Lisa Grant carefully removed one of the crystals from its holding rack. The moment she touched it, information began flowing across the nearby screens. The crystal contained detailed scientific data about biology and chemistry and physics. One small crystal held more information than all the computers back at their university. Alex Turner worked frantically to translate the labeling system the Corvani had used to organize their data storage. He discovered that the crystals were arranged by subject and importance. There were sections for mathematics and engineering and medicine. There were entire areas devoted to philosophy and art and music from across the galaxy. Jake Collins found crystals that contained geological surveys of hundreds of different planets. The Corvani had cataloged the mineral resources and climate patterns of worlds throughout their region of space. Some of the planets had conditions very similar to Earth, while others were completely alien environments. Amy discovered biological data that made her hands shake with excitement. The Corvani had studied life forms on dozens of different worlds. They had detailed information about how life developed under different conditions and how different species solved the challenges of survival. The knowledge could revolutionize human understanding of biology. Ben found climate data spanning millions of years from many different star systems. The Corvani had tracked weather patterns and atmospheric changes across vast periods of time. Their data could help humans predict and prepare for climate changes on Earth far into the future. Colonel Ryan Murphy was most interested in the technical specifications he found in the engineering crystals. The Corvani had detailed plans for building faster-than-light engines and energy sources that could power entire civilizations. The technology was far beyond current human capabilities, but the principles were clearly explained. Dr. Grant made a discovery that excited her more than anything else they had found. Hidden in a special secured section were crystals containing detailed information about 17 different intelligent species. The Corvani had compiled complete profiles of every spacefaring civilization they had encountered during their million years of exploration. The species profiles included everything from basic biology to cultural practices to technological capabilities. Some species were peaceful traders who had built vast commercial networks between star systems. Others were isolated researchers who preferred to study the universe from their homeworlds. A few were aggressive expansionists who had to be avoided or carefully managed. Kate read the profile of a species called the Xanthari, who had developed technology similar to humans but had chosen to focus on art and philosophy rather than exploration. Another species called the Morphic had the ability to change their physical form and had become master engineers who built structures that spanned entire solar systems. Steve discovered that the Corvani had included detailed star charts showing the current locations of all 17 species. They had also provided information about safe routes for space travel and which regions of space should be avoided due to natural hazards or hostile forces. The most incredible discovery was a complete technical manual for building a communication system that could reach across interstellar distances. The Corvani had included step-by-step instructions for constructing a device that could send messages to their homeworld, which was still thriving 1,200 light-years away from Earth. Alex found personal messages that individual Corvani crew members had recorded before they died. They spoke directly to the humans they knew would eventually find their ship. They expressed confidence that humanity would use the gift of knowledge wisely and eventually take its place among the galactic community of intelligent species. Dr. Grant discovered that the Corvani had been preparing Earth for eventual contact with other species. They had identified several other civilizations that had proven friendly to new species and would likely welcome humans when they were ready for interstellar contact. The Corvani had essentially prepared a roadmap for humanity's entry into galactic society. The crew members had also left detailed warnings about species and regions that humans should avoid. There were aggressive civilizations that attacked any new species they encountered. There were areas of space where ancient automated defense systems still operated and destroyed any ships that entered. The Corvani had mapped out both the opportunities and dangers that awaited humanity among the stars. Colonel Murphy found military information that both worried and reassured him. The galaxy contained threats that could destroy entire civilizations, but it also had defense alliances that protected peaceful species. The Corvani had been members of a loose federation that shared information and provided mutual protection against common threats. Jake discovered that the Corvani had included samples of rare materials from across the galaxy. These materials had properties that could revolutionize human technology and medicine. Some could store enormous amounts of energy, while others could repair themselves when damaged. The practical applications were almost limitless. Amy found biological samples that included beneficial bacteria and viruses that could enhance human immune systems and extend human lifespans. The Corvani had identified ways to improve human biology without changing what made humans fundamentally human. They had wanted to give humanity the tools to thrive among the stars. The team realized that the Corvani had essentially left humanity a complete university education about the galaxy and how to survive and prosper in it. Every crystal contained knowledge that could advance human civilization by centuries. The gift was so comprehensive that it would take decades just to fully understand everything the Corvani had provided. Kate stood in the cargo bay surrounded by the accumulated knowledge of a million-year-old civilization. The Corvani had not just studied humanity from a distance. They had prepared a graduation gift for when humans were ready to join the larger community of intelligent life in the galaxy. Dr. Grant held one of the communication crystals and realized its full significance. The Corvani homeworld was still out there waiting for contact. When humans built the communication device and sent their first message, they would be announcing to the galaxy that Earth was ready to join the interstellar community. The team understood that they were not just studying an archaeological site. They were the first humans to receive the most important gift in human history. The question was whether humanity was mature enough and wise enough to use the Corvani legacy responsibly. 6 months after the discovery of the Corvani ship, everything had changed for humanity. Kate Morrison found herself sitting in a secure conference room with world leaders from every major nation. The room was deep underground and protected by the highest levels of security. What they were discussing would determine the future of the human species. President Helen Carter stood at the front of the room addressing delegates from around the world. She had spent weeks studying reports about the Corvani discovery, and the implications were staggering. The alien knowledge could solve every major problem facing humanity, but it could also create new dangers if used incorrectly. Dr. Lisa Grant presented her analysis of the Corvani biological data to the assembled leaders. The aliens had provided cures for diseases that had plagued humanity for thousands of years. They had also given humans the knowledge to extend lifespans and enhance physical and mental capabilities. The medical advances alone could revolutionize human civilization. Steve had been working with teams of engineers to understand the Corvani energy technology. The power sources described in the alien crystals could provide clean, unlimited energy for the entire planet. There would be no more need for fossil fuels or nuclear power. Energy could become so abundant that scarcity would become a thing of the past. Jake Collins had been studying the Corvani mining and materials technology. The aliens had developed ways to extract resources from asteroids and other planets without damaging the environment. They had also created materials that were stronger and lighter than anything humans had ever made. The construction possibilities were endless. Alex Turner had made enormous progress translating Corvani philosophy and social sciences. The aliens had studied how different species organized their societies and what factors led to peace and prosperity versus conflict and destruction. Their insights could help humanity avoid the mistakes that had destroyed other civilizations. Colonel Ryan Murphy presented the military implications to the world leaders. The Corvani had provided detailed information about hostile alien species and how to defend against them. They had also given humans the technology to build weapons and defenses far beyond anything currently available. The question was whether humanity could be trusted with such power. Amy had been studying the Corvani data about environmental management. The aliens had learned how to maintain healthy ecosystems across many different types of planets. Their knowledge could help humans restore damaged environments on Earth and create sustainable colonies on other worlds. Ben had discovered that the Corvani geological data included the locations of valuable mineral deposits throughout the solar system. Asteroids containing rare metals worth more than the entire Earth economy were mapped in detail. Space mining could make every person on Earth wealthy beyond imagination. The debate among world leaders was intense and sometimes heated. Some countries wanted to use the alien technology to gain advantages over their rivals. Others argued that the knowledge was too dangerous and should be kept secret or destroyed. A few leaders believed that humanity was not ready for such advanced technology and needed more time to mature. President Carter reminded the delegates that the Corvani had specifically chosen to share their knowledge with humanity. The aliens had studied humans for thousands of years and concluded that humans had the potential to use advanced technology responsibly. The question was whether modern humans could live up to that ancient faith. Dr. Grant argued that humanity had no choice but to use the Corvani gift. The galaxy contained threats that could destroy Earth if humans remained isolated and primitive. The only way to survive in the long term was to advance technologically and join the galactic community of intelligent species. Kate Morrison was asked to speak about her team's experiences with the Corvani ship. She described how the aliens had been researchers and explorers just like modern human scientists. They had left their knowledge not to control humanity, but to help humans find their own path to the stars. The breakthrough in the debate came when Alex presented his translation of the final Corvani messages. The dying aliens had expressed complete confidence in humanity's future. They had believed that humans would eventually become one of the most important species in the galaxy. Their faith in human potential was absolute and unwavering. World leaders spent 3 days debating before reaching a unanimous decision. Humanity would accept the Corvani gift and use it to benefit all people on Earth. The knowledge would be shared freely among all nations, and no country would be allowed to gain unfair advantages over others. Construction began immediately on the communication device the Corvani had designed. Teams of engineers from every major nation worked together to build humanity's first interstellar communication system. The device would be located in a neutral location and operated by an international committee. The medical advances were the first Corvani technologies to be implemented. Diseases that had killed millions of people throughout history were eliminated within months. The average human lifespan increased dramatically and quality of life improved for people everywhere. Hospitals became places of enhancement rather than just treatment. Energy production was revolutionized. Using Corvani power sources, clean, unlimited energy became available to every person on Earth. Poverty began to disappear as basic needs like food and shelter became essentially free to produce. The environmental damage from fossil fuels stopped almost overnight. Space exploration expanded rapidly, using Corvani propulsion technology. Humans established permanent bases on the Moon and Mars within 2 years. Mining operations began harvesting resources from asteroids. The solar system became humanity's backyard. Rather than an unreachable frontier, education systems were transformed as humans began learning about the galaxy and their place in it. Children studied the histories and cultures of 17 different Alien species. The perspective of being part of a vast galactic community changed how humans thought about themselves and their responsibilities. 2 years after the discovery, Kate Morrison stood next to the completed communication device as it prepared to send humanity's first message to the Corvani homeworld. The message contained not just greetings but examples of human achievements in science and art and philosophy. Humans wanted to show that they had grown into worthy members of the galactic community. The response from the Corvani came faster than anyone had expected. Their civilization had been waiting and hoping for 50,000 years that their sacrifice would eventually bear fruit. The message was simple but profound and filled with joy. The Corvani welcomed their young cousins to the galaxy and looked forward to sharing the future. TOGETHER Dr. Grant read the Corvani response to the assembled world leaders. The aliens invited humanity to join the Galactic Research Council and contribute to the ongoing exploration and understanding of the universe. They also provided contact information for the other 16 species, who were eager to meet the newcomers. Kate looked up at the night sky from the same Arctic research station where the adventure had begun. The stars no longer looked cold and distant. They were neighborhoods where friends and allies were waiting to welcome humanity home. The frozen ship had contained more than alien technology. It had held the key to humanity's destiny among the infinite possibilities of space.